Guys, welcome to tonight's live chat. I see you guys chatting. Sorry to keep you waiting, guys. Fridays are days where I'm seeing clients. So sometimes meetings run over, sessions run over, but I see you guys talking. I think that's fantastic. Please let me know if there are any audio issues. I had some issues with my mic today, so let me know if anything comes up. Looks like we're doing okay. I do want to fix something. Give me 1 second, guys. I don't know if I can. Yeah, I can. Okay, I'm going to add in here Instagram because a lot of you follow me on Instagram. So let me add Instagram in here and then I'm going to jump in and we will go from there. This is an interesting topic. I'm waiting on Instagram to kick in here. This is an interesting topic because a lot of adults in today's society feel like their childhood has just been taken from them, and it's so hard to be an adult when you feel like you haven't had a childhood. You know what I mean? So I think this topic today is going to be quite interesting. And I think a lot of you, oh my goodness, what is going on here? I think a lot of you are going to appreciate the conversation tonight. Log into an existing account. Oh my God. Instagram has like all these security things that you have to go through. And let me tell you, it's a headache. It's a headache. Try another way. I don't know if we'll be able to get Instagram, guys. I don't know. I'll try to work on this as we go along. I don't want to pause things and get in the way of things. So let's just power through this without Instagram tonight. Oh, I feel so bad for my Instagram people. Yeah, you're welcome, Kyra knows. I just showed you. I just saw your message is what I'm trying to say. Okay, I don't know why I can't get into my Instagram account. I hate it. Sorry, Instagram folks. I know some of you usually come from Instagram to my YouTube channel. So hopefully you can find your way that way. This is such a headache. Let me try one more thing, guys. Hold on. Yeah, this might work. This might work. Okay, I think we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. It's interesting, guys, how, yeah, it looks like we can get in. Hold on. Bear with me, guys. You know how sometimes Instagram, sometimes they have like these security measures and they are there to protect your account, but at the same time, it can lock you out. That's how this feels. That's how this feels. So I'm going to have to leave it here, I think. Yeah. Okay, let's just jump in, guys. We'll go from there. So parental alienation and parentification are sometimes two terms that kind of gets used interchangeably, and they sometimes, the definition kind of overlaps, because parental alienation is when one parent says derogatory and negative things to a child, an adolescent, and even an adult child that should not even be said at all to the child, adolescent, or adult child, because it's going to kind of tarnish the way that the child sees the other parent. Aside from parental alienation is parentification. And these terms in psychology, again, they are kind of used together, because in a lot of cases of parental alienation where the other parent is put in a negative light, parentification is also happening in that family dynamic. It just so happens that these are two complicated pieces of the story for dysfunctional families. Now, let me explain the prevalence rate in the United States. I don't know about the UK, I don't know about Canada or any of the other countries, but I know in the United States, the prevalence of parentification is unknown. We don't have that statistical data, that statistical data that we love and we need, let me try one more thing, guys. Hold on. We don't have that data. We don't have that information. So we're kind of just, in the dark here, filling around and hoping that we can make sense out of what happens in the process of parentification. In the process of parentification, there seems to be this forced element that is at the core of the experience for the adult child, the child, or the adolescent. So here's what I mean by that. You are forced, if you feel that you have been parentified, meaning that you have been pushed into a role that you are not psychologically, emotionally, or cognitively prepared for, there's an element of force here because you are forced to assume a developmentally inappropriate role. Let me go over that again because that was a lot to take in. You are forced to assume a developmentally inappropriate role. I am either, and I'm going to break this down for you guys as we go along. I am either being asked to be the parent, I am either asked to be the spouse, right? Or I'm asked to be both. And a lot of young people struggle with this. They struggle with it because they can't perform at the same level that an adult would. They are not psychologically, emotionally, or even cognitively prepared for that. So it's almost like you are being forced to grow. And you're not only just being forced to act an age that you shouldn't be acting, but you're also being forced to fill the shoes of another adult. And that is the most detrimental and traumatic position to be in. It's a developmentally inappropriate role, excuse me if I can speak here. It's a developmentally inappropriate role that you are being forced into. There's a role reversal. And you are no longer the child. You are now the parent. You are now the grandparent in some situations, and you are now the spouse in some situations. Or get this, you're all three. And that can even lead to years and years of mental health problems. It can lead to years and years of cognitive issues. It is a very detrimental place to be in, and it follows you throughout the lifespan. And that's what I'm going to break down for you in tonight's live chat. Now, let me just say here, sorry guys, I'm trying to see if I can make Instagram work. I don't think so. I'm trying even as I'm talking. Oh, okay. All right. Sorry guys, I'm like multitasking here. So there's two forms of parentification. Okay, you ready, guys? One is instrumental parentification. Two is emotional parentification. Now, instrumental parentification is this. It is pushing you to assume the responsibilities of the household. So let's say growing up, you were asked to clean, cook, prepare for tomorrow's lunches, get the mail, get the paper, walk the dog, go grocery shopping, and pick up some things on your way home from school. But it has to be things that we need to last us for a few days. So we're talking like not just go in and get milk, bread, eggs, cake, and some potato chips and maybe a TV dinner or two. We're talking go in and do some grocery shopping like grown-ups do, And so that's overwhelming. So that's instrumental parentification. Emotional parentification is fulfilling the emotional needs of the parent. You're either the mother or the father, or you're the husband or the wife, the partner, the person who has that romantic friendship with the parent, as almost as if you are being asked to be the husband, the wife, the lover, the boyfriend, the girlfriend. And that's a very difficult position to be in, right? Because again, you're being pushed to a level that you are not psychologically, emotionally, or even cognitively ready for. Now, let me also say that these two things can happen at the same time. They can either happen at different times along the course of your development, or they can happen together all the time. So an example of this might be, let's say for the first few years of your life, between the ages of 7 and 10, you had been forced into the position of instrumental parentification. You did all the chores, you cleaned, you walked the dog, you walked your brother and sister to school, you got them ready for school in the morning, you put their shoes on, got them dressed, you brushed their teeth. You did all of that to help your siblings live and thrive and be okay. So let's say that happened to you for the first few years of your life. By the time you hit 10 years old, the role may have changed now to emotional parentification. You no longer do all the chores and get your siblings ready for school and things like that. You now are just your parents' confidant. You are your parents' everything. And there's no way out of that. It would be nice. Oh, look here, guys. I think I may have cracked the live code. I think I got it. Maybe I did. Oh my goodness. Okay. Let me see if I can. Wonder if I can go live. Can I go live on my phone, guys? I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. As I go along in tonight's live chat. I'm going to figure this out. So I hope that makes sense, guys. It can be either role, or it could be both roles at the same time. Okay. That is parentification, instrumental or emotional. As we go along, what I really want to do is give you an understanding of what is this, right? What is this actually called? Not just parentification. What really is this? And what does this really mean? Then I want to give you some insights on how this happens, and then how this impacts you, and also how it probably has impacted your adult life, because there's no way that you can be pushed into a role like this and can function. Now, let me also say, though, to be very fair, that parentification can also be somewhat positive in some situations. Psychology suggests that parentification can sometimes be positive because it kind of pushes you beyond your limit a little bit. And for some kids, they thrive there. They grow up nicely, they mature. They talk a little bit more mature than you would think. They tend to be, for the most part, open, mature, reflective. I have kids that sees me now in my private practice who are like that. And I just look at them and I'm like, how are you this way? They're so grown up. And so sometimes that is because of parentification. But sometimes it's also because the parent is spending a lot of time with them and helping them to grow and mature and pushing them beyond their limits. So sometimes this can be helpful. Okay, so I don't want to make it look like this is so bad. This is so terrible. But it is something that can be positive. Okay, guys? All right, I'm going to go to the chat box so we can get into this a little bit more. Let me turn my screens around. And Let me pull you up on my phone as well. Okay. Here you guys go. All right, I'm going to go back to the beginning of this. And I want to welcome you guys and then answer some questions, engage you in conversation, and then we're going to continue on. For those of you who have access to Instagram, I am so sorry my Instagram is not working today. I feel terrible. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Okay, I see Deb. Hi, Deb. How are you? Welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to see you again. Bryn Parr, hello and welcome. Queen Common Sense, glad to see you back tonight. I also see Courtney Frazier and Dawn One. Hello and welcome back. Glad to see you both. Thank you so much for that, Dawn One. I feel like Fridays are home too, and I'm so glad you feel that way. That's so awesome. Anne of Hearts, hello and welcome. Nancy R, hello and welcome. I see you. Yes, Nancy says, thank God it is Friday. Let me put her message up here, guys. I don't want to skip past this one. Thank God it's Friday. I felt like that this morning when I got out of bed. I did. Moon Warrior Turtle, hello, welcome. Glad to see you. Hope you're doing well. All right, let me go past some of this. Nancy, it sounds like you're sharing some things. Deb, I will come back to that probably after the chat. Tammy Nicely, hello and welcome. Glad to have you back tonight. Annie Welker, welcome, welcome. Glad to see you as always. Black girls getting their shift together. Hello and welcome, welcome. Glad to see you. Jessica J, so glad to see you. Says, hi, Tamara and everyone. Wish I could say I'm doing well. I'm going through some serious medical issues. Hope everyone is well. Sorry to hear that, Jessica J. I feel like you've been going through this for a while. Join the club, okay? I'm right there with you. I hope you do have some downtime, though, and some rest. That helps a ton, let me say. Is it Coral Sky or Carol Sky? I apologize for that. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you. I don't remember seeing you, so welcome to the live chat. Okay, guys, I'm looking for comments here. Anne of Hearts, I love that. I really and honestly do hope so. That is my goal every single live chat. Every single live chat. I'm so glad that you feel that way. Okay, let me keep going, guys. Longevity Rituals, hello and welcome tonight. Glad to see you. Looking for comments here. Give it a think. Hello and welcome. I also see Love, Laugh, Live, Maggie. Hello and welcome back tonight. Glad to see you. I think I welcomed you, Kyra Knowles. Hello, welcome again, in case I did not. Team Mac, it's always good to see you. Hello and welcome. All right, still looking for comments. I think Roseanne has a good comment coming up here. Silent Walk, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. I also see, is it the Shay? I'm gonna take a chance and say that's what it is. Happy Friday to you. I apologize if I got your name wrong. Roseanne, welcome. Says, so happy to be here. Your videos are comforting, to my soul. Oh my, that's so good. Thank you so much for that. And have answered so many questions regarding toxic family dynamics. Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm so glad. Thank you for that. Fairy Girl, hello and welcome with the dabs. Oh my God, I know it's you. Anytime I scroll down the chat box, I know it's you, especially when I see the dabs. Welcome. Glad to see you tonight. Sun and Sunflowers, welcome to the live chat. Okay. You guys have a ton of comments here. I'm just looking for comments, but I don't want to skip over you guys. Ellie Wynn, hello and welcome. Ari, Jess, I don't remember seeing you. I probably messed that up. I apologize. Welcome to the live chat tonight. Glad to have you. Sean Hammer, hello, welcome. Glad to see you. Marquisa Bowers, hello and welcome, says, I decided to have peace and forgive for being with a adult child, am co-parenting with, this is a little choppy. Okay. You're saying that you decided to have peace. You're co-parenting with someone. Okay, Marquisa Bowers, if you can bring that back to me, that would be great. That's not adding up to me, and it's probably not you. It's probably me. Bring that back to me if you would. I'm happy to read it. Siren, hello and welcome tonight. Glad to have you, since it's really sad to see children who are forced to take care of their siblings and get abused if they don't do it correctly. I very much agree with that. Let me just give you some content here and say that adultification, which is parentification, adultification is just that you're being forced by the parent to be an adult. And if you don't do it right, you're going to anger them. You're going to frustrate them, right? You're going to make them feel like you're not, quote unquote, taking care of what they told you to take care of. And this is what is the bigger issue here when it comes to adultification, parentification. It's you're forcing me to perform in a role that is really not mine at this point. You're even forcing me in some ways to take care of my younger siblings, which is unfair. And maybe this kind of a parent continues to have kids and then puts them on the younger child or puts them on the older child, whatever the case may be. Getting frustrated with a child, an adult child, an adolescent, a young child, because they're not performing a duty correctly that doesn't really belong to them in the first place is a major, major problem. It's a major problem. It should not be happening that way. We're going to talk about this in just a little bit here, that the role reversal can be very traumatizing because there you are trying to perform the behaviors, the cognitive skills, the emotional skills. You're trying to perform in a role that is not ready for you, or vice versa. You're not ready for it. And you're losing out, right? Because you're not even being fed. You're not being fed. You're not getting that one-on-one time with your mom or dad. You're not getting those pep talks, right? You're not getting that love and affection. Why? Because you're so busy, performing a role that doesn't rightfully belong to you. And for the most part, you're performing a role that has been placed onto you without any of your own permission. So you lose, and in some cases, the siblings, the parent loses as well, because everybody's kind of playing in roles that doesn't belong to them and nobody gets anywhere. Sometimes everybody is emotionally and psychologically traumatized. Let me also say too, before I continue on, in the chat box here, that psychology research around this issue in psychology suggests that there is sometimes major cognitive, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe I'll flip that around. Research suggests that there is cognitive immaturity. I'll put it that way. Cognitive immaturity when it comes to parentification or adultification, because you don't have the space to grow. You lose the ability to have those conversations with your adult parent, have those, moments of feeling down and being able to work through them with your parent because you're so busy stepping into those shoes. I hope that makes sense. So sometimes there's some cognitive immaturity on the part of the victim, if you will. And technically you are a victim in this situation. Queen Common Sense says, my mother is very emotionally immature. I felt like her chaperone as a young 13-year-old. She was always so emotionally vacant and scattered. Yes, emotionally vacant is a fantastic idea. And I like that you say that, because it is. It's like the parent is completely vacant. Sometimes they have what we call a diminished ability to perform. They don't have the ability that they are asking you to have sometimes. And so, it's almost like the parent says, okay, I can't handle this as the parent. So here you go. Hope you can make this work. And I hope that we can move ahead into our future with you navigating, you driving the cart, you making the decisions, you giving me the pep talks, and you taking the burden that's emotional. And that's not okay. It's not okay. It never works that way. I'm sorry you had to go through that, Queen Common Sense. She prays, hello and welcome. Glad to have you back in tonight's live chat. Glad to see you. Sun and Sunflower says, I was doing everything in the household with, I was doing everything in the household. My mother was checked out. Babysitting younger siblings has made them angry with me once I left home. It was time. Yeah. Sun and Sunflowers, try to see it this way. And I don't know if this is your situation because I don't have a lot of information, but maybe look at it from this angle. You know, parenting your siblings, in a sense, kind of forces you into a position you never asked for. That's, you know, that's the truth there. You're forced into a position that you never asked for, but it kind of sets you up to lose. That's really what I'm trying to say, because your siblings are kind of confused, right? And this is for those of you who also have been parentified, not just Sun and Sunflowers. When you are in that position, you know, it's hard for your siblings to see you as a sibling anymore. You kind of take over the role of a surrogate parent. And because of that, now your siblings have to try to work out in the back of their mind, you know, are you mom? Are you dad? Are you still my sister? Are you still my brother? Like, where are we here? Are you just in charge of me because mom or dad asked you to babysit me? Or are you in charge of me every day? And if so, what does that mean? You know, should we respect you like an adult? Should we treat you like a sibling? There's a lot of confusion in there. And when I get cases like this, let me tell you, I'm not happy to get them. Sometimes I have to refer out because it's so psychologically draining. And sometimes the damage, right, can be traced all the way back through multiple generations. So there's kind of like a generational trauma there, an intergenerational trauma in some of these families. But Sun and Sunflowers, they may be angry with you because you were forced into a role that they themselves couldn't really understand. In some very quote unquote sick and unstable dynamics, sometimes the siblings become jealous of the parentified child because the parentified child is being given the privileges, is being pushed to mature and grow quicker than would be expected, and are kind of looked at as mom and dad's equal, you know? So sometimes in very sick dynamics, you have younger siblings or older siblings who can become jealous, intimidated, and feel inferior. So I know that's a lot. Maggie M10, hello and welcome. I think I said that correctly. Glad to see you on here. I don't remember seeing you, and thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate you for that. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. I love hearing that. Thank you. I'm so glad. Kevin Tui, hello and welcome. Glad to see you back. Haven't seen you in a little while. Clarissa, ooh, I feel like my camera is not focusing. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Clarissa H, hello and welcome. I don't remember seeing you, so welcome to tonight's live chat. Says, I can definitely relate to this topic. I had to basically take care of my younger siblings as a kid myself. Before that, we were taken care of ourselves when our parents were working. Yeah. Were you a latchkey kid? A latchkey kid? You know, you kind of had the key, you go in, you know, you open the door, you leave the house, and then you come back alone. So you have a key, you know, to get in and do what you need to do because mom and dad were at work all the time. Latchkey kids are, in terms of psychology, research, and studies that have been done, most latchkey kids end up becoming lonely adults, depressed, sad, and sometimes even suicidal. And that's the sad part. We're going to get to that in just a little bit because some of that could be a part of your life story as well. And I want to make sure that you understand exactly why. Okay, let's get back into the content, guys. Then I'm going to come back to the chat and we'll talk, and I'll welcome the rest of you. Let's talk about what is parentification. Parentification is what it sounds like. However, there's some elements that needs to be highlighted. So I'm going to highlight them. Parentification is also known as adultification. You heard that from me already. Adultification is being the adult. You are the neutral party. You kind of, in a sense, cut yourself off from your siblings, if you have them, and you become the adult. So you become the equal. hierarchical system that happens in most families where dad's up here, mom's here, we're down here. It's just a hierarchical system that doesn't exist in households where there's parentification or adultification. It's non-existent. So instead of mom and dad being up here and you down here as the sibling, you now come up to mom and dad's level. And so now you become that quote unquote neutral party who is taking care of the siblings. So you are no longer a sibling. Your siblings may even start to look at you in anger and resentment because you're calling the shots, you're making decisions, you're the emotional and psychological support for them. They don't want that from you, right? You're supposed to be the sibling. So that causes a lot of friction in families. But the adultification process is, I'm the neutral party here. I'm no longer sissy. I'm no longer bruh or brother. I am now the mom and the father. So now you must treat me that way. So you're the neutral party that makes the decisions, kind of calls the shots. You correct behavior. You play with the kids, right? You're no longer the sibling anymore. You may also become dad's confidant or mom's confidant. And when you become that sounds weird to my ears. When you become that, you now get a chance to know what's in the family bank accounts, right? Because in some households, in order for you to go grocery shopping, in order for you to pay a bill online or put a bill in the mail, in order for you to see what's due or not due, you have to have some access, or you're given cash or a check or a money order. But for the kids that I have treated who are parentified, the reality is you're going to have to know what's being financially shared in the family, right? What's dad's account number, mom's account number, where's the credit cards hidden, what banks do we belong to, what credit cards can I use for this store and that store? So you kind of gain that knowledge over time. Or mom and dad gives you $100. That's something that most kids don't get their hands on. They wish they could. But in a house, where there's parentification, all that stuff. That automatically seats you at a position that's above your siblings. Your siblings are here, you're here now. And the more you become mom and dad's confidant or mom and dad's adult figure, the more power you gain and the higher you go in that hierarchy. And so your siblings can become resentful, of course. That's sad. So you get financial insights. You may also start to have conversations with your parent that is not an appropriate conversation. I've had to contact Child Protective Services in the past. Number one, I'm a mandated reporter. I have to do that if I suspect abuse, and I'm making a good faith effort to protect my clients. But there are times where the waters are a little murky for me. And I sit there and I think, I don't know, is this a Child Protective Services issue or not? But I can give you an example. A couple years ago, I did contact Child Protective Services because there was a 12-year-old who had both been, if you ask me, the victim of instrumental parentification and emotional parentification. Instrumental, she was going grocery shopping after school. She was taking her brothers and sisters to Target, Walmart, Sam's Club to get shoes and things that they needed for school. Then she would come home after all of that. She would take an Uber at 12. She would come home. Then she would tell the kids to get washed up, put their pajamas on. We're going to eat dinner. Guess who cooked dinner? She did. So she knew how to boil things. She knew how to fry some things. So that's what she did. They sat in front of the TV for about 5 or 6 hours alone while dad worked. Mom was also working. They were always busy. And she, set the table. They ate dinner, she and her siblings. She put the dishes in the sink. What did she do? Wash the dishes. By the time mom and dad came home around 7 or 8 p.m., she was exhausted, like she was a housewife. She was completely exhausted. And this poor child didn't look like a child anymore. She looked beat up, just physically beat up. She was so tired. Her eyes were red. She had bags under her eyes. She just didn't have that vibrant shine that a 12-year-old should have. She was burdened. And she continued to do that for an entire year. That's when I had to call Child Protective Services. Now, she was also put in the position of emotional parentification, where sometimes mom would come home at 11 or 12 a.m. at night, 11 p.m., 12 a.m. She was a high-powered attorney and was needed. Dad would be home, but we all know how dads are sometimes. They don't take the equal role sometimes. So dad would, prop his feet up, eat dinner, and then talk to his 12-year-old daughter about his day at work, talk to her about his emotional issues and how much he misses her mom. And so she became not only the housekeeper, but a therapist. And so both of those things led to a Child Protective Services report. So that was adultification. Now, spousification, can you identify where that happened in this case, guys? Spousification is when you become the parent's spousal figure, right? You're the wife, you're the husband. You may not be asked to help your brother and sister get into bed and get their night clothes on, but you may be asked to sit and watch a movie while dad or mom talks to you about her sex life, talks to you about her emotional life, how much, she misses your dad and how she's thinking about having an affair. There may be divorce coming up, how much money dad is spending on his business trips, whatever, right? Spousification means you don't really take care of the family, but you sit and you listen and you coddle and you provide emotional and psychological support to your parent in the form of a spouse. And there is a very, very ugly truth to that. There's some research in psychology. I'll make sure to post it in the description box for you guys. There is some research that suggests emotional incest happens. Emotional incest happens when a child is emotionally parentified. Meaning, if you become the one who holds your mother or father's emotions in good confidence, you are the supporter, the emotional supporter. You provide that love and affection to that parent. That parent can then, if they are very ill, very narcissistic, even if the parent is a psychopath, they can actually fall into a role of becoming sexually attracted to you. That is a scary reality, but it does happen. And this happens, I hate to say this, for all you guys on the channel, this happens a lot with daughters and fathers, I'm going to make sure to put that research in the description box for you. But this is what happens, okay? So spousification, adultification, role reversal. Now, a role reversal can also be known as spousification and adultification. The reversal is I'm not being treated as the child. The roles have reversed. My mom is the child and I am now the adult. My dad is the child and I am now the adult. So in my existence, I am the adult in my household. The parent is not. Now, there's a such thing known as pseudo parents, and those are the kids, who kind of take the parental role, and they are doing everything with the parent in a way that almost makes it look like, guys, that the parent is now the child. I hope that makes sense. Pseudo parents. The parent is no longer the parent. They are the child. The child is the parent. So that's why we call it pseudo parents. One last thing before I go to the chat box is that there is often maybe I should put it this way. There's an intentional and sometimes an unintentional assigning of the role to the child. So in some cases, that's why in some cases we call this unintentional abuse, because sometimes youths or kids or teens or even adult children are pushed into the role of being a parent, a spouse, or an adult way too soon, unintentionally, because of circumstances within the family dynamic. And we're going to get into that in just a little bit. So you can consider some situations to be unintentional abuse. I'm abusing you by forcing you beyond your capacity, but I'm not doing this because I'm an uncaring parent. I'm doing this unintentionally, and sometimes even without my awareness. Let me know what you guys think of that concept in the chat box. All right, let me go to the chat, take a break here. I need a little bit of a break. Excuse me, and I want to engage you guys just a little bit. You did not see Starbucks. Dragon Man, Sasson, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Muse Swift. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. And thank you so much, Queen Common Sense. I really appreciate you for that. Sean Hammer says, yes, Tamara, the constant invalidation and lack of support results in us learning to live without it. Yes. And let me say that it is constant. It is constant invalidation, right? You're supposed to be validated as a child, as a teenager, as an adult child. But when your parent is the unstable individual, it is hard to do that, right? When the parent is the unstable individual, it's hard to feel validated. I should be more clear. It is hard to feel validated. Daryl Harris, hello and welcome. Glad to see you on tonight, as always. Yeah, so glad to have you. Yeah, always glad to have you here. Betsy, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Yeah, thank you so much for that. Thank you. I just feel so bad for my Instagram people. Yeah, this is kind of good. I'm surprised. It's a topic that you've never heard of. That means we're not doing our jobs as professionals to educate the public. We're not. Mama Lena, hello from Germany. Welcome back. Glad to see you. Team Max says, both of my parents didn't raise me. Both of my parents didn't raise me. My grandmother did everything I've learned was... Grandmother did everything I've learned. Oh, my grandmother did everything, period. I've learned was trial and error, which costs a lot of valuable time. I was taught how to be a functioning person. I had to read books. Oh my God, that was choppy for me, but I understand. You're saying that your grandmother did everything. You had to learn through trial and error. You felt that it took a lot of valuable time, right? But you had to teach yourself how to be a functional individual, a functional adult. That is a sad reality. And that is definitely parentification and adultification. You had to be pushed beyond your limits, beyond your abilities, beyond the role that you should have been in, which is a child as an adolescent, right? And you kind of had to sink or swim. And it sounds like you had to learn to swim. Yeah, I totally get that. Uh-oh. Give me 1 second, guys. Yes. Okay. Got it. Just trying to see if I can maneuver my Instagram people in here as I continue to talk to you guys. We'll see about that. I don't know. I'm trying. Okay. Queen Common Sense says, my mother's emotional immaturity is disturbing. She's always trying to force me to make my intellect smaller by restating the obvious and pointing out common things. Any thoughts on this? Not really, because I'm not really clear on all the details, you know. But could that be a dynamic between the two of you? Possibly. Nancy R says, they were frustrated with my quality, and I was, as a child, frustrated with their quantity. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. I like that, Nancy. Yeah. I'm gonna read Fairy Girl here. Fairy Girl says, in trying to co-parent with an abuser, I realized I was modeling, enabling, excusing behaviors my own family of origin. That's when I was finally able to... Did you... Ooh, I lost that last part, Fairy Girl. Where'd you go? I'm just going to take the beginning part of that, which is, in trying to co-parent with an abuser, I realized I was modeling, enabling, excusing behaviors. Yes, that can happen. That can happen. Doesn't necessarily, in the moment, it doesn't feel that way, right? But in hindsight, 2020, it feels that way. You can see where maybe you've gone wrong, right? Hive Mind Denied. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Yeah, I love what Ellie Wynn says here, guys. Arrested development to the extreme, 100%. Arrested development. You couldn't have said it any better than that. Totally agree with that. Okay, bear with me, guys, as I go through comments. Anne of Heart says it causes so much guilt for wanting to just be normal. Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely see that. Mo in the city, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. I don't remember seeing you, so welcome. Says, I've had a nightmare last night about my childhood neglect, and I'm in my 40s. I just want to know, when is this going to stop? Yeah. Ooh, that's a tough one. And I don't know your situation enough to say, it's going to stop at this point, at that point. What I can say, though, to you is sometimes the more you heal, the more your childhood is triggered, right? Memories, flashbacks, all of that can be stirred in the brain. The more safe you feel, comfortable you feel, and even the more stressed you feel. We might as well add that in there. But if you haven't been in therapy, that would not be a bad thing if you're not in there. But if you are, great. I would share those dreams with my therapist and I would work on them together. EMDR therapy is a tool that my colleagues use, but that I'm continuing to learn and study over time. And it seems to be a really good way to process those traumatic memories. So just thought I would throw that out there for you. Layla Papa, I hope I said that correctly. Welcome. Glad to have you tonight. Says, I had half of my life wasted taking care of my grandmother for 12 years. Mm-hmm. Now, after 2 years, I am taking care of my great-grandmother. Oh, that's so hard, right? It's also hard to look at your family sometimes, and tell me how you guys feel about this. Sometimes it's hard to look at your family and say, I can't help you because that's too much stress on me. For me, my caretaking role has always been, your family, you need me, I'm all in. I'm going to help you up until a certain point. Then I have to kind of put up the boundary. But for the most part, it's come to me. I will help you. I will support you. I will love you. I will do all of that. Sometimes it's hard to separate that from your family role, right? Because we should be helping our family members. We should be loving and supporting them. So how do you turn to that individual and say, you're now pushing me beyond my capacity? That is a very hard role to be in. You're pushing me beyond my capacity. And so in a sense, this is adultification. This is parentification. Why do I have to continue to take care of family members? At the same time, it is okay to take care of your family up until a certain point. So it's a bind. It's a bind that you get put in. A seat at the King's table with Tanisha. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you tonight. Says, Tamara, I remember having to walk several blocks to drop my sis off at the babysitter before school. People thought I was a teenage mom and used to act funny towards me. Yep, I've heard of that before. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I've had clients come in, so like 16, 17-year-olds, and they have had their younger siblings so much during the week, even with school, that some of my clients have told me in the past, I don't like going to baseball games or school functions with my siblings because people think I'm the mom, Yeah, it's too much. You should be known as the sibling and the sibling alone. That's it. Reza the Great, I probably messed that up, but welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Says, yeah, definitely a latchkey kid. Yep. To a certain extent, we do have to grow up and be on our own. To a certain extent, mom and dad have to make a living, and we do have to be a latchkey kid. However, what makes this traumatic, what makes this spousification, adultification, parentification, what makes this a role reversal is that there's a burden on you to maintain this kind of lifestyle. It's not like you're being asked to step up temporarily or every now and then, or to contribute to the family. There's a burden placed on your shoulders, and that burden says, I can't handle this anymore. I am beyond my capacity because I haven't developed those skills yet, and I'm being pushed to develop them. So that's the scary part. Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together says, I had a play referee in my parents' toxic marriage. Yeah, I had to play, the referee in my parents' toxic marriage. Very confusing for a child. Yes, it is. No, Mom, that's not what Dad meant. Dad, would you stop yelling? Mom, stop saying that. Right? And it goes back and forth, back and forth. And sometimes, like I said at the very beginning, there's parental alienation. Mom just chit chatters away about how bad of a person dad has always been, or vice versa. It's a position that you should not be placed in. Okay, give me 1 second, guys. No, nothing at all. Okay. All right. I'm multitasking here. David Tooley, hello. Yes, you're welcome. And thank you for coming back. Glad to see you. Deb says, I was a latchkey kid who was responsible for a younger sibling. Yay. I did grow up to be lonely and very capable and have no expectations that anyone will ever be there to support me. Oh man, that's the painful reality, right? Nobody's going to be there to kind of catch me on the other end. I'm all by myself. Yeah, that's not okay. That's not okay at all. Okay, give me 1 second, guys. What is going on here? Okay, sorry about that, guys. I'm multitasking with technology here. Kay, amen. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Glad to see you. Says, I can so relate. I took care of my sibling who was born with an illness, and even until adulthood, I've had to put my life on hold to help my sibling since my mom didn't have much help. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we do have to step up, right? We do. We have to say, okay, I'm here to help you, Mom and Dad. But again, if there's a burden placed upon you, that's not good, right? That burden is just too much to bear, and you should not be carrying that burden at all. Yes, we have to step up, but that's about it. Adaby Goddess, thank you for the excitement. That's so honoring. Thank you so much. Says, oh my God, I caught you live. How are you? Doing well. How are you? Your content is really helpful. Thank you for sharing. You're welcome. Thank you for that. So glad that this is helpful. Let's jump back into the content. Okay, guys, I'll come back to the chat box in a second. I want to make sure that I keep us on schedule. So how does this happen? You guys may be wondering, how does this happen that, okay, I'm parentified, I'm dealing with adultification, I'm dealing with spousification, there's a role reversal here. So why is this happening to me? The number one reason why this tends to happen, and this is in the United States, is a parent's mental illness, and especially if it's a severe mental illness. Now, I've had clients who have come to me the ages of 12, 15, 16, and sometimes even 19, 20, who come to therapy because they are burdened by their parents' mental health concern. Having a severe mental illness is very different from having a mental illness. A mental illness may be seen as something like depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, impulse control disorders, trichotillomania, intermittent explosive disorder, right? Those are all considered mental illnesses, but a severe mental illness could be considered schizophrenia, psychosis, where you're hearing and seeing things that's not there. You have delusions, right, where you're believing things are happening that's not really happening. Maybe you believe the FBI is chasing you. Maybe you believe your great uncle has come back from the dead and is now taking over the body of your neighbor, right? Things like that. So delusions. There's also hallucinations. I'm hearing and I'm seeing things that are not really there. I'm smelling things that really don't exist. I'm feeling things on my body that's really not happening, right? So severe mental illness. I can also throw in here bipolar disorder. Sometimes, depending on how it's treated, a parent's bipolar disorder is like a roller coaster, right? Up, down, up, down, up, down. They leave upset, angry, explosive, and come back sweet, loving, and want to love you and treat you as a child, right? Sometimes bipolar 1 disorder, sometimes bipolar disorder that's untreated or poorly treated or not treated at all can sometimes lead to suicidal thoughts and attempts, right? And you may witness that. There may be tons of gambling or sexual indiscretion. You could be witnessing that, right? So psychology says that kids who are parentified, young adults who are parentified, or children, teens, and adults who are in the process of spousification, you become the surrogate spouse. Severe mental illness is often at the core of that. I once had a family. I'll give you just a brief insight look into this. I once had a family, loved the family. I think they were great. Grandma was a wonderful grandma, the best grandma. She's like that really sweet grandma that you just want to squeeze and hug all the time. And she makes you all these delicious biscuits and pancakes and, all kind of delicious pastries. She was a wonderful grandmother. Okay. So these kids had a wonderful grandmother. The sister, who was 16, brother 17, they grew up under a mother who constantly blamed her mental illness for being abusive, constantly blamed her mental illness for being neglectful, constantly parentified both kids, and put them through instrumental parentification. So they were doing chores and cleaning and cooking and, keeping the house together while dad was away or at work. And then she would also blame her absolutely insane reactions to things on not taking her medication, on forgetting to take her medication, on having a really bad night trying to sleep. And she made her children's life horrific. Do you think she felt guilty? Not at all. Why? It's because I didn't take my medication. It's because I have a severe mental illness. It's because I had a really bad night and I didn't sleep. This is why I'm beating up my children, tearing up the house, manipulating their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And now I'm trying to push them into the role of cleaning and cooking and maintaining. And I also, this is her behavior. This was her behavior. And I also have become so emotionally distraught that I need my daughter to come into my room, sit on my bed, and hold me while I cry, while my son downstairs cooks the dinner. And it was hard for me to wrap my mind around this mother who was not only severely mentally ill in the sense that, she was pretty psychotic when she didn't have her medication, but she refused to stay on the medication, right? But she had a lot of anxiety, obsessions, delusions, hallucinations. And even when she was on her medication, the children were the adults in the dynamic. The sad and scary part about this for me at the time this family was getting treatment is that the brother felt like his mother's father and the daughter felt like her mother's husband. So she got two important roles that she needed to be filled. I have my dad and my son, and I have my husband and my daughter. Why should I change? And so she continued to not take her medicine, continued to drive them absolutely insane with her behaviors. She got everything she wanted, though. She definitely parentified her children, and there was a spousification that happened, indeed. So severe mental illness. Let me also say, too, that these kind of parents may struggle with grief and loss. Grief and loss. I lost my husband, I give up. I lost my wife, I give up. Or we've had too many deaths in the family, so now I'm going to lean on my child. Now I'm going to lean on my daughter. She's going to be my husband from this point on. Parents who just give up. This job of being a parent is too much. I'm done. right? They sometimes parentify their children. There's also immaturity, parental immaturity. I don't want to be a parent. So, and I don't want to have to deal with your emotional reactions to life. I don't want to have to educate you or teach you. I don't want to have to help you with your homework. So I'm going to parentify you. You are on your own over there. Please take care of your sister because I want to go in my room and take a nap. And then when I wake up, I'm going to go out and party because that's what I want to do, you know? So parental immaturity. There's also this innocence about it as well in some families where mom has a diminished capacity to be a parent, dad has a diminished capacity to be a parent because they're tired, right? I've worked all day. I'm trying to take care of everything as a single parent and I'm tired. So that's in there as well. And let me not, in this part of the knowledge here and the content, without mentioning dysfunctional families of domestic violence, right? Sometimes there's domestic violence. The husband is threatening, the wife is threatening, there's physical altercations, there's police involved. And sometimes the children, and this may have been you have to kind of step up and say, it's okay, mom, we're going to figure this out. Or it's okay, dad, you know, I'm going to strengthen you with my words. It's almost like the trauma causes the child to have to step up and be the adult. And that's the sad reality. Okay, guys, before I go back to the chat box, let me give you just a few things that happens to you. So let's say this is you. You were forced to grow up, forced to be a spouse when you didn't want to be, forced to be a parent over your siblings when you didn't want to be, or forced to be the parent of your parent. Can you believe that dynamic? Sometimes that's in there as well. So let me give you a few things before I go back to the chat box. Then we'll continue and then we'll wrap up. Guilt and shame. Have you guys felt that? Let's say this is you. You were forced to grow up, forced to be the spouse, forced to be the parent. Have you had guilt and shame? What if that parent has a severe mental illness? They're not taking their medication, so they become very physically, emotionally, and psychologically abusive. Okay, let's say there's no medication, there's no therapist involved. Your mom, your dad has completely gone off the deep end. Do you feel guilt and shame? They push you into this parental role. Now you're an adult. Do you have any feelings of guilt or shame? Some of my clients now and some of my clients that I've had in the past do. They feel guilt and shame because they weren't able to help their parent. They feel guilt and shame because the parent kind of gave off this energy that they weren't a good child, right? Or they weren't meeting their expectations in some way. So you may feel some guilt and shame because of that. And let's bring in a sibling who may go against you for quote unquote not following orders, right? Not doing what the parent wants you to do. So you can feel guilt and shame because of that. You also assume a role that has nothing to do with you. So your identity kind of gets lost in all of that, right? It's hard to figure out who you are when mom and dad are pushing you into a role that doesn't rightfully belong to you. The role could be sibling focused, meaning you're being forced to take care of your siblings, or it could be parent focused. You're being forced to take care of your parent. That's not okay. You lose a piece of your identity. And lastly, before I check into the chat box, we'll come back to this, but before the break, let me also add in here that sometimes you can then be forced to feel suicidal yourself, homicidal, right? It's like, you know, you feel like you're going to snap, you're going to hurt somebody else, or you can start to lean into self-injurious behaviors because that's all you've got. All right, guys, let me go back to the chat box, see what you guys are saying. I'm going to give you the final 5 things that can happen to you or has happened to you, and then I will definitely wrap up. Just Kendra, hello, glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Glad to see you as always, says, but as I listen to this, I think I missed a comment you said earlier. I'm sorry about that. But Just Kendra says, as I listen to this, my mom had to take care of her 5 younger brothers growing up. Yes, very glad that you said that, because research in psychology has confirmed after study that if your parent was parentified, it's possible that they're going to parentify you as well. It's a generational trauma in most families. It continues to happen over and over again. It takes one position and one child to stop the continuation within the family, you know? Don 1 says, as the oldest, as a third grader, I was expected to stand on a chair and wash the dishes. Oh my. I was whipped for a piece of rice and a fork. I have many examples, but I would be talking all night. Yeah, I believe it. Oh, Don 1, I'm sorry to hear that. It's so jaded, right? Of a situation, because yes, it's okay to allow your children to be as involved as they possibly can. I actually praise those parents who allows their 2-year-old to wrap up their own diaper, or at least help you do it, and then you give the diaper to the child and he puts it in the trash, right? What am I teaching my toddler? What am I teaching my 16-month-old, 17-month-old? I'm teaching them that this is how we clean. This is how we become responsible for our own bodies, our own selves, right? That's kind of cute. That's kind of helpful. It's okay to push a chair up to a sink and say, you want to help mommy wash the dishes? Come on up, right? You're 2, you're 3, you're 4, you're 5. But here's where it gets jaded. It's not a learning experience. You're pushed. This is what you want to walk away from this live chat in the back of your mind with. You are pushed beyond your capacity. I'm not trying to push you to grow you up, to help you be competent, to help you be mature. I'm pushing you beyond your capacity. That's the sad part. Greg D, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Says, so you broke up a family because the family was too poor to not work so much. Oh, I think I missed the other part of that. So I have no idea where we're coming from. I don't know. I'll tag this on my end and I'll try to come back to you. K Amen says, I'm grown and unfortunately my parents still uses me time and money to take care of her and my sibling. Oh boy, that's a difficult one, right? Because we do need to support, but where's the boundary there? That's what you have to figure out. And that's what's so very hard for we adults, right? And adults in the world. It's hard for them to figure out, when do I say, okay, this is the line and you've crossed it? That's a little difficult. Sun and Sunflower says, I was walking to the store at 6 years old with my sister, who was 1 year younger, had a grocery list and money plus from it. I believe it. I am very good at saving money and doing business, but lost my childhood. Yeah, I believe that. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, I believe that. Okay, I'm looking for comments, guys. Bear with me. Lindsay Marie, hello and welcome. Glad to see you back. Haven't seen you in a little bit. Says, I was my parents' mediator. It's so easy to slip back into that role. It's something I have to stop myself from doing, even with other people. Exactly, right? You become the mediator with your parents. You're going to become the mediator with your friends, maybe in your own situation. Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult indeed. Tanisha Scott, hello and welcome. Welcome, says, very scary reality. Yes, it is. Yes. Lindsay Marie goes on to say, kids are in the crossfires of adult issues. Absolutely. So most of you probably know, and I think you are well aware of the fact that I am a child, adolescent, and family psychotherapist. So that means I'm seeing families in their most vulnerable position. And I have been for the past 15 years, where kids are constantly in the crossfire of their parents. And there's a reason why my policies are as they are. They are very firm, clear, and to the point. And they really do strive to involve the parent, but then also have a boundary so the child can feel safe. Because here's what can happen. And this is to your point, Lindsay Marie. The parents bring the child to therapy. Mom sits down, dad sits down. Mom and dad start arguing. Where's the kid? Lost in the middle again. They're lost in the crossfire of mom arguing, dad arguing. Or the child is being pressured to perform in a role that they are not ready for because mom and dad are emotionally and psychologically immature. They're fighting and they don't know how to put their own differences aside. My brother and my younger sibling, my younger brother, I don't know about my older brother, but my younger brother and my mom, okay, they are diehard fans of Judge Judy. And there's one thing that Judge Judy says, though. There are times when I walk by them watching Judge Judy and some things will catch my ear. And there's one thing that I do have to agree with her on, and I love this. She says that you should learn to love your children more than you hate each other. And she's talking about parents. Learn to love your children more than you hate each other. But when it comes to parentification, spousification, adultification, parental alienation, that's not happening there, right? The parents are often at odds with each other. And sometimes that just takes over the child's life. You're right, Lindsay Marie. They are caught in the crossfires, and that can lead to years of trauma. Jeremiah Rivera, hello and welcome. Glad to see you back tonight. Says, I was the only boy with two sisters raised by our grandma. I was the middle child, but I was the man of the house. Yeah, sometimes that happens too. You know, and there's nothing quite wrong with being the man of the house. The issue is this. Are you the man of the house all the time? Are you the man of the house beyond your capacity? Because if so, that's not okay. Queen Common Sense says, this is so confirming. That's good to hear. I'm so glad to hear that. Says, I am astounded at how the alignment is so accurate. I have been researching this for years. Yeah. A lot of people have been researching parentification, adultification, spousification, and even role reversals. And this is not information you're going to find Googling. I've said that for the past 3 live chats, right, guys? Because Google will give you blogs, they will give you articles, you know, where it talks a little bit about these issues, but you need the research, and that's what you're getting. So Queen Common Sense, I'm so glad you said that. Wonderful. Thank you for letting me know that. Love, love, love. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you. I haven't seen you before, so welcome. Says, what do you call a family that does not like the black sheep scapegoat? Yet, when the black sheep finds a way out, the toxic mother and siblings constantly call and want to know. I think you meant how I am doing. I mean, I don't think this has anything necessarily to do with parentification. I don't know. I'd have to know more about that family dynamic. We could throw some things out there. We could say maybe it's guilt. You know, maybe they want to know how you're doing because they know they've caused you some harm. You know, maybe they're trying to pull you back in. I don't know. I'd have to know a little bit more to be able to judge that correctly. Adaby Goddess says, I used to look after my many cousins at 8. Yeah, that's a lot. That's too much. That's too much. If it's a vacation, fantastic. But if you're constantly doing that, no, not at all. Keisha Monique, hello, welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. She Prays says, my mom has 4 younger siblings. I'm wondering if this explains why she expected me to raise myself when I was very young. Yeah, probably. She was probably exhausted from caring for her siblings. Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. I'm exhausted. That's what we would call the diminished capacity. My capacity to be a parent is diminished. I'm exhausted. Please step up. Yeah, I would agree with that. G Major, hello and welcome. Glad to see you back in tonight's live chat. Says, I'll be 56 in 3 weeks. Excuse me, guys. Second sibling out of 4 and governed my household when my mom was at work. I believe that. Governing, leading, guiding the household, that's pressuring. That's pressuring indeed. That should not be something that you're doing. You know, my brother says this all the time. Hold the fork down, right? Hold the house down. Hold the house down until mom and dad gets home, and then you're free. Hold the house down until mom and dad come back to supervise. But if you're doing that for long periods of time, that's a problem. That's a problem. Clarissa H says, I can understand the idea of unintentional abuse. Yep, good. My parents did as much as they could in terms of food and making sure we were in school, but siblings and I did everything else. There you go. There you go. It's a form of neglect, right? It's like, okay, mom, you know, thank you for providing for me, but now I also need the emotional support. And that's not something that you're getting, or that you got, I should say, speaking of past tense. Anne of Hearts says, you also make concessions for them, not being, but it made me want to not also. Did I lose you? Yeah, I don't see you complete that. Oh, I don't see you complete that, Anne of Hearts. I'm just going to take the beginning of that and read. You also make concessions for them. You do. You also kind of, you know, you kind of cover them too, right? Because even in a house where there's parentification, there's spousification, adultification, role reversal, you are constantly seen as just the child, right? If you go out in public, they're not going to see you as the parent. They're going to see you as the child, and the parent is the parent, right? So you kind of cover the parent. Parentification is a kind of abuse that is hard to identify. It's also hard for Child Protective Services to really make a decision on, because it gets blended and blurred by the reality that it's okay for you to be a part of a family, right? In quotation marks. So it's hard for even Child Protective Services to say this is abuse. It's hard to prove, and it's hard to report. And it's hard for anybody on the outside to get it as well. Mrs. Ed, hello and welcome. Glad to see you back tonight. Says, I moved back home with my elderly parents. I gradually had to assume the role of parent when they exhibited early signs of dementia. Yeah, that's another issue. After my dad passed away, I had to assume the role of confidant plus more. Yeah, there you go. You're confirming, Mrs. Ed, what I said about grief and loss. There's a grief and loss element. I've had clients like this. Imagine a scenario where, you know, mom dies, mom passes away, but dad and the children are still there. Dad has to make a living. Dad has never had to cook a day in his life when your mom was alive. Dad never had to have these emotional conversations with you ever, right? When mom was alive. Neither did dad have to take you shopping to get school clothes or get books for school, and the list goes on. So mom has died. She's passed away. This is just an example. This is a scenario that I've seen. And so now dad has to leave and do his work so we can continue to pay the bills, the mortgage, the car notes, whatever. And now I'm home, and dad doesn't really know about all the things mom had to do. So what's going to happen? You're going to have to step up. And so sometimes the child starts to feel that burden right away. After the funeral, right at that moment, I feel the burden. Seeing my mom laying in a casket, for example, tells me that I'm going to have to step up. And sometimes kids sit there at the funeral. I once had a client like this, sat at the funeral, looked at mom in the casket, and she reported to me 7 years after her mom passed away. She was still seeing me for therapy. She reported to me. She was like, Miss Tamara, I feel at the moment my mother was put, that when they wind the casket down, that's like the most depressing, painful part of the whole thing, right? When that was happening, she said, I could literally see myself saying goodbye to my mom. And I was also saying hello to becoming my mom's replacement. And so the sad reality of that, Mrs. Ed, is that happens more than we think it does. It's a very sad reality, isn't it? J.O., hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. I'm going to give you guys the rest of the content here in a second. J.O. says, you end up feeling like a child with a stretched capacity for responsibility. That's so well said. So well said. I feel like my camera is out of focus. Forgive me if it is. I'm sorry, guys. She goes on to say, but an adult with little emotional nourishment. Yeah, you feel like an adult with little emotional nourishment. That's such an excellent way to put that. She goes on to say, a lot of us are undeniably competent, but feral inner child. Yes, agree. That's why tomorrow's live chat, and I'll make sure that Instagram is connected, I promise. But that's why tomorrow's live chat is the psychology of reparenting yourself. Don't miss it. Okay, guys, don't miss it. You're going to want it. A lot of you have asked me for it behind the scenes. So it's coming. It's coming tomorrow. The psychology of reparenting yourself, what that looks like, what that entails, how you can do it. The list goes on. So stay tuned, okay? Give it a think. Hello and welcome. I think I welcomed you, but I can't remember. Says parentification happened to all of the children in my family, both by both parents, very immature parents. Yeah. Have you guys had the book from one of my colleagues and partner authors? I say that because we're under the same publishing company. Dr. Lindsay, is it Gibson? I hope I have that right. She wrote the book, Adult Children of Emotionally Detached Parents. You may want to get that. If I have that wrong, I'm going to be so mad at myself. I'll try to pull that up here at the end so you guys can go ahead and get that book. Okay, looking for one more comment before I give you the rest of the content. Nancy R., that's so great. Thank you for saying that. That's so wonderful. VSO1, hello and welcome. Glad to see you. And I remember seeing you. Michelle N, hello. Glad to have you in another live chat. Welcome back. I'm going to read Tammy Nicely and then get back into the content, guys. Tammy Nicely says, I was that parentified child, even had to take the younger ones when I went out with my schoolmates. Yep, sometimes that happens, right? I'm going to take you to the baseball game with me and my friends. I'm going to hang out with my bros over there tonight at 7, but I know I have to take my younger siblings. Why? Because mom doesn't want to have to deal with it. I once had a client where the daughter was 17, the younger daughter was 6 years old, and mom would be tired, hot, miserable, irritable, angry. And what would she do? She would put the 6-year-old on the 17-year-old and say, here's some money, go to the movies. What did mom do? Stay home, relax, listen to music, bring her boyfriend over, whatever she wanted to do. That was the issue for me, taking care of a case like that. Okay, mom, it's not like you're taking a hot shower, you're cooking dinner, you're trying to clean the house. You want to hang out with your boyfriend. You want to get high and drunk. And the only way to do that is to give your eldest daughter money and tell her to take the younger one out. So wrong. So wrong. Okay, guys, we left off at you can start to develop your own suicidal thoughts, self-injurious behaviors, homicidal thoughts. There's also the experience of losing the ability to set healthy boundaries now as your own adult, now as your own person. It's almost like over time you lose an awareness of a hierarchy. You lose an awareness of the reality that parents are supposed to be here. You're supposed to be next in line. There's no hierarchy. There's no boundaries. And if you have children of your own, or you're in a romantic relationship or a marriage, you may find it really difficult to set those boundaries, right? Even more difficult to set those boundaries with your own children. And that's why research in psychology suggests that parentification continues over many generations, many generations. There's also this internal sense of loss, that you may carry for the rest of your life because you lost a big component of your development, which is your childhood, right? Your adolescence may have also been lost in some ways. You also lose that developmental capacity to go from one stage developmentally to the next. You lose that ability, you lose that freedom, right? Because you're being pushed beyond your capacity. So you've skipped 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. You're way up at 12th grade. Why? Because mom and dad have put you in that role. So you've lost that ability to grow. You've lost that capacity in some senses. Does it mean that you are doomed and you're not a mature adult? No. It just means that you may have lost some really important pieces of the puzzle to help you create a complete puzzle as an adult, you know? You also become kind of desensitized, to equilibrium. You don't really have an awareness of the reality that life doesn't have to be so thrown off and so tumultuous and so confusing and so unequal. It's almost like you become conditioned to disequilibrium. Psychology research also backs this up, that a parentified child sometimes becomes so used to the turmoil that a life of stability is no longer comfortable. You know, the parentified child, the spousified child, is so used to being an adult and making sure that everybody is okay and everything is sturdy that they don't know how to have equal, loving relationships. Sometimes disequilibrium and chaos is where they want to be because that's what they're used to, right? Over time, you become a people pleaser. Research in psychology highlights that parentified children will sometimes become people pleasers. They don't know how to say no. They don't know how to set that boundary. Remember, they don't understand the hierarchical boundaries sometimes, that this is grandma, this is mom and dad, this is me, this is my siblings. That's not, I'm sorry, guys, that's not a reality, right? So sometimes, sometimes the parentified child loses that. So they become a people pleaser. I'm going to make sure that I please you at all costs. There may also be academic underachievement. How can you manage school over here and be the best that you can be when you're over here raising your siblings, or you're over here singing your dad to sleep because he misses that from his own mom? It's really difficult. That was actually a case of mine so many years ago. Dad was so emotionally distraught over losing his own mom that he would ask his 17-year-old daughter to sing him to sleep. And so the only way that I had that, first person experience with this young lady is she recorded herself singing to dad. And dad said, "Could you sing a little louder?" Because my mom would sometimes get a little louder. "Can you sing up just a little bit louder?" And she would, raise her voice and sing a little bit louder. And then when she was done singing, he would, say to her in a tired, sleepy voice, "Thank you so much for this, Mom. Thank you so much." And then he would say, "And I really appreciate you. You're such a wonderful daughter." And that was the instability of his mind, the instability of his heart. But he really parentified her. And in his mind, she took the role of his deceased mom. So how could she manage all of that? That's heavy, right? And also become a straight A student. She had a very hard time. So she flunked and she failed. Let me also say with academic underachievement, before we end here, guys, in a little bit, let me also say that even parents who have severe mental illness, they're not taking their medication appropriately. They're not going to get psychiatric treatment to make themselves better for their kids. They're not doing that. They're just becoming a continual problem for their child. The issue here is the child is parentified because you're not doing what you need to do to take care of your own mental health. But the child also has to constantly be afraid that you're going to go off the deep end because you're not doing what you need to do. So that kind of adultification is scary too, right, guys? I'm afraid mom's going to go off the deep end. I'm afraid dad's going to lose touch with reality because they're not getting treatment. They have a severe mental illness. So what does that do? That keeps that child, that keeps you in that adult role of constantly making sure that everything is as it should be, that you're not going to anger mom or dad, that you're not going to not get the laundry done, right? So you do all you can to meet that parent's very, very high expectations. And lastly, in this category, guys, it's not always all negative. Sometimes, and I think somebody in the chat box said this, sometimes it pushes you to be really good financially, really good when it comes to choosing relationships, being a friend, getting the best jobs, getting a higher education. Sometimes it pushes you. Some people, and I'm like this, some people, if they wrong you, they push you, right? They not only push you to one place, they push you to thrive above and beyond. And so it's not all negative. I want to leave you with that. It's not all negative. Sometimes you are pushed above and beyond, and that can get you in a really good position. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up here in just a little bit. I want to go back to the chat box and read your comments. And I'm going to ignore this individual here who made a statement to you guys about being an FBI agent. We're going to get rid of that. I want to go over some of your comments, and then we're going to wrap up. Okay, guys. Helene Webster, I don't know if I welcomed you. If I did not, forgive me. Welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Michelle N says, this is so sad. Yes, it is. I agree. Q Quita, I can't say this. Quita Award 1. Oh, I messed that up so bad. I'm so sorry. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to have you. Tinablas Abysmos, I mess your name up every live chat. I just want to welcome you and acknowledge you. Hello. I apologize for that. Looking for comments, guys, and we are going to wrap up. Nikki Nicole, hello. Nikki Nicole, hello and welcome. Glad to have you tonight. Says, I love and appreciate your channel. Thank you so much for that. So glad, so glad. Michelle N says, have you ever heard of the oasis and Electra complex? No, I have not. I probably mispronounced that first word. I have heard of the Electra complex, and I have also heard of the Oedipus complex when I was in college so many years ago. Let me say Sigmund Freud is the author of both of those terms, as well as the Oedipus complex. Sigmund Freud was an interesting individual, okay? He did some good, but he also had some issues. And one most important issue he had was being sexually and romantically attracted to his mom, which is where the Oedipus complex comes from, the idea of that. And I'm trying to think of the other issue he had. I can't remember it right now, guys, but he had some issues in this area. I'm just going to put that out there. Thank you so much, D. Oshikoya. I probably messed that up. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate you for that. Says, wow, finding your channel has been a blessing for me. Any recommended books to index on this? Absolutely, 100%. I don't know. I think I just thanked you for the super chat. Let me get a book for you guys. I think you're going to want this book, okay? It's right here in my library. And I suggest that you guys give it a try. Okay. Is it a book that is geared towards trauma? Yes. And for most people who are beginning in psychology, they pick up this book. This is Dr. Perry. He's a great doctor in the field. He has studied trauma. This book is The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog by Dr. Perry. Okay, this is a great book. It gives you a lot, as you can see. What I like about the book is it not only covers trauma, but it gives you an idea of family trauma, individual trauma, parent trauma. The list goes on. So hopefully that is helpful. I always revisit this book when I get a family that's entrenched in trauma. It gives you an understanding of how trauma impacts the brain, how the family dynamic and trauma can impact the brain. So I thought I would throw that out there for you. I'm glad you asked me. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the continual super chats. I love that. Thank you. And of hearts, you're so sweet. Thank you so much for that as well. Thank you for the super chat. Says, thank God for your work, Tamara. Thank you so much. And I feel like I'm the blessed one. I feel like you guys have just been nothing but a blessing to me. So thank you so much for that. And I love teaching you. That's why this happens every single week. Ellie Wynn says, push beyond your capacity. Yep. Yep. Just Kendra. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I am a fighter for kids. And if you're going to hurt a child, whether you mean to or not, we've got to fix that. We've got to fix that. It can't happen this way. Ari Jess says, at 48 years old, I have experienced everything you are describing: parental alienation, instrumental parentification, parental immaturity, physical abuse, sexual abuse. Yes. And Ari Jess goes on and says, neither of my parents raised me. Recently, I have identified that I am the scapegoat. summarizing what my mother has been in my life. She is my greatest enemy, just like my older sister. Oh, that's awful. Awful. I'm so sorry, Ari Jess. Here's what I am glad about, though, is that you found your way to my channel. And I'm hoping that the things we cover that's research-based, focused on my clinical experience, focused on the field, can kind of help you move from point A to point B, feeling more confident and knowing what has happened to you. There's a reason why I do these live chats like this, where I teach you and then I talk with you. I teach and then I talk with you, because it's all a learning experience, right, guys? And the more you learn, the more powerful you become, the more healing can happen, and the stronger you feel on the inside. Is it going to cure everything? No, no YouTube channel can. However, these conversations can be really instrumental, can't they, guys? Because it shows you you're not the one who has the issue. Here's what happened to you, right? And here's the situation you've been placed in. So hopefully, Ari Jess, that can help you. Adabi Goddess says, what's a good practice for emotional instability? I'm definitely having to work that, because it really hit me badly after 2020. What's a good practice for emotional stability? Oh man, join me tomorrow when I talk about reparenting yourself, okay? You may get some tools and tips in there. Spirit Wine, hello. Welcome from Hawaii. Oh my God, I've got to visit there before my time on Earth is up. It's so beautiful. My family members, my extended family, went to Hawaii one year, and I'm like, they look like they were not pleased to be back in the US. Let me just say. So glad to have you, by the way. Brian Renner Davis says, I'm 35. Hello, welcome, by the way, to the live chat. Says, I'm 35 and I'm fully healed now. I'm living as a responsible, fun grown-up. Good for you. That's wonderful. Good for you. Okay. I'm just going to acknowledge some of you because I can't get to all of these. I'm so sorry. Black Sheep 216, hello and welcome. That's so sweet. I'm so glad. Thank you for that honoring comment. That's so humbling. Thank you. And I'm happy to be, at least on YouTube, right? MJ, hello. Currently going through NC with family. I'm not sure what that means. You guys probably know it. MJ, welcome to the live chat, by the way. Ash Shakar Whitaker, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Said, I heard that the reason why they don't want the black sheep scapegoat to leave is because then they have no one to dump on. Blame. Yeah, that could be a possibility too. Yep. All right, guys, I'm just scrolling through. I do have to go. Love Logic, hello and welcome. I don't want to say goodnight without saying hello to you. I see what you're saying. Yes. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah. Yeah. No, you're probably never going to be the same. The dynamic is jaded, right? Yeah. I'm sorry that happened. DD, hello and welcome. Glad you made it. We're gonna turn off tonight, but tune in tomorrow. I'm happy to see you tomorrow as well. All right, guys, Jeremy Robinson, let me say hello before we sign off. Welcome. Glad to have you tonight. I don't remember if I welcomed you earlier. Guys, for those of you who I couldn't get to tonight, know that I'm going back to this live chat later, and I'm going to be scrolling. I do it every live chat just to answer you, talk to you, acknowledge you. Thank you also for the super chat. So glad to have you tonight. It was a little bit rough for me. So hopefully you got all the information. You soaked it all up and sucked it all in, hopefully. All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow in tomorrow's live chat. Have a wonderful Friday night. I'll see you then. Good night, guys.